and nature. The fundaments of law do not come from convention, but from nature, according to Cicero. There would be, therefore, a natural, divine, and universal reason preceding all written law. He tells his audience he wishes to talk about universum ius, that is, about law in general, searching for a universally valid ethical orientation. Cicero defines lex as ratio summa, divine reason, intrinsic to nature, running the cosmos. He is convinced that Roman citizens, guided by the recta ratio, act with prudentia, and are capable of defining what is subject to ordering or impediment. Thus, they choose the good and elaborate laws that will guarantee the salvation, happiness, safety, and peace for the civitates. We then understand the great importance given by Cicero to the observance of rituals and to the respect given to the cult by Roman citizens. Roman religion, as defended by him, should cooperate to the establishment of tradition and consensus, and had a role in social cohesion and control. There was a civic pact between divine beings and citizens that required of the latter a series of duties and impediments. Through the renovation of the trust in the rituals, Roman citizens reinforced that first connection that linked them to the gods, the origin of natural, divine, and universal reason, considered the basis for the law and the good. The fides presides the original pact that links humans and gods, and the inter homini agreements, the federa between peoples, and private transactions between Roman citizens. The breaking of fides by any citizen threatened and put at risk Roman society as a whole, for the concordia with the gods and the maintenance of the relation pax deorum, pax hominum, were considered necessary to the preservation of the social order and the protection and prosperity of the urbis. Giving such values to the law that ruled private cults and public ceremonies means also giving to priests and magistrates an enormous amount of authority and prestige. After all, the correct running of public rites and the interpretation of divine signs on the part of the political and religious authorities was the condition for the maintenance of the proper pacific relations with divinity. Any disturbance in these relations threatened Rome with the risk of grave disasters and defeats. The augurs were the ones who observed, according to a discipline, the divine signs of non-hostility, finding a position favorable from the gods in a intended public action. The rights and the authority of the augurs in public questions were, in the words of Cicero, great and exceptional. In some, the authority and the exercise of power of the augurs were notable, and from them Roman society waited that they act with prudentia, or they were versed in the laws and capable of saying what was right, iuris dictio. Unfortunately, I did not receive, Professor, the part on Lucretius. So if you could, maybe we could take a look, yes, from your
projected text.
It helped.
I suspect it did, but I'm sure a running commentary / summary would be very valuable.
Okay. Well, I do intend of translating all the papers fully for publishing, so. Aqui. Obrigada. Ok. So, the Rerum Natura, written around the first half of the 50s of the first century before current era, is an epic poem composed in hexameters, organized and divided in 6 books, all of them set by proem, and an epilogue. In the proems, is that proems? Prefaces, okay. In the proems, the Roman poet celebrates the exultant promise of liberation of the Epicurean philosophy and praises Epicurus in an heroic epic tone. It is certain that historiography on public Roman law tended to centralize its analysis around Cicero's treatises, while the analytical fortune of the Rerum Natura concentrated in its poetic value and repertoire of literary formulas. His recognition, while historical document that illuminates juridical, institutional, and religious aspects of late Republican Rome, is still very limited. So the debates done by Roman intellectuals, animated by the study of themes of the philosophy of nature, installed a polemic or controversy, a deistic polemic or controversy in the first century before current era. We observe that the partisans of a Stoic or academic vision inferred from the regularity of natural phenomena a divine cause or an inherent proposition to the world. An expressive part of specialists consider that the Epicurus, on the contrary of the first, would be incapable of offering a satisfactory answer to the regular events, making orthodox an imprecise vision according to which they admitted that the phenomena of nature did not obey to rigorous laws of necessity and causality, but only of indeterminate contingent movements. Such critics insisted that Epicurus recognized the presence of accidental events in his conception of the world, and attributed to Klimanen, the deviation of atomic particles, the occurrence of things supposedly random in nature. What calls attention in this controversy, however, is the fact that the Greek and Roman opponents of Epicureanism never have used in their invectives in their attacks to Klimanen to deny the consistency of the theory of the Greek scholar in this terrain of the regularity of natural events. So on the decade of the 80s, the critic finally recognized that the restriction to the indeterminate occurrences are very limited in the philosophy of Epicurus than normally admitted. So there was a bigger consensus among specialists that Epicurus would have affirmed that all observable phenomena in our world form a necessary chain of events and obey continuous causation that is strictly mechanical. The only exception really admitted by him to the dominion of rigorous natural laws would be human behavior, capable of generating spontaneous actions. And only in the field of human actions there would be an interference in the Klimanen of the atoms. We don't find in the writings of Epicurus any systematic application of the atomic deviation would be deviation in the development of some theme of natural philosophy. However, the Klimanen has fundamental ethical implications in his moral work, such as the letter to Meneceu, in which the Greek scholar rejects the destiny and condition of implacable necessity, and disregards the interference of strengths of powers or unstable causes in the life of the wise man. At this point, Lucretius follows the steps of Epicurus and does not associate Klimanen to phenomena of fortuitous or aleatory or random world. The poet uses atomic deviation in a first moment to justify, in a theoretical point of view, the need to introduce genitalis motus in his conception of natural physics. The atoms stop moving in the same direction and push against each other, sponte sua, they form agglomerations. With this is offered an indispensable condition for the creation of worlds, a formation of magnarum rerum exordia. So, we must alert, however, to the mistake of supposing that Lucretius extended these spontaneous movements, spontaneous and no unpurposed movements of the atoms to already created worlds. In the same manner of the Greek scholar, the Roman poet was preoccupied in assuring that Epicurus' philosophy respected the rigorous natural laws of need and causality. In his exposition of Epicurus' cosmology, he gave emphasis to terms like federa, ordos certus, fines, leges, etc. Lucretius emphasized that Klimanen is an exception to the normal movement of the atoms, a minimal deviation produced when they move away from their trajectory in a distant nec plusquam minimum. On the contrary, Cicero ridiculed this principle, referring to it as res commentitia. Besides the creation of the worlds, to Klimanen, the Roman poet attributed the existence of libera voluntas in human actions. Thanks to this minor deviation, the souls composed of the finest and most movable atomic structures break with the fatty federa and have actions not entirely determined by pre-existent conditions in the world and in nature. In the poem, Lucretius tried to justify theoretically through Epicurus physics without using, however, the operation caused by a soul or a divine mind. The commitment of these spontaneous actions with reason and regularity of the experiences of the world. To understand how rigorous and well-fundamented it is in this point, his way of thought, it is necessary to admit that qualified actions like contingencies, free from any finality, cannot be, however, compatible with natural laws of need. Lucretius will elucidate that such actions result from preceding conditions, as well as those more readily recognized as regulars, and respect the same continuous causation and are strictly mechanical and rational. That the Epicurus philosophy argues to be submitted to nature. In the Legibus, Cicero declares himself in ortulis suis, in disagreement with the Epicurists, when the subject is the fundamental of civic order and the normality, the institutional normality of the republic. The dissension raised by Cicero is an attack used frequently against the Epicurists. Human actions, supposedly not linked to the law that rule nature and the cosmos, and from which all other phenomena and occurrences in the world depend, would seem to be totally accidental and random. Such erroneous understanding, voluntary or not, of spontaneity and libera voluntas from Epicurus made easy the dissemination in the arena of public communication, the accusation that the adepts of the doctrine of Epicurus wished to reach only individual utility. So, in this point of view, Epicurus would be going against the perspective of public utility common to all the citizens. However, through his deviant rhetoric, Lucretius will defend the ratio, the Epicurist ratio, as fundament to guarantee legitimacy and critical consistency to law. The Roman poet will propose, in the place of recta ratio, of the Ciceronian recta ratio, coming from a divinely animated nature, the Epicurist ratio, a principle of causation strictly mechanic from nature. Considering the question in this point of view, we can only speculate the strangeness with which Lucretius would have met the idea of consecrating to reason a sacred temple in Rome, publicly dedicated. The ratio is the key idea in the thought system of the Epicurist thought system. Through it, the Roman poet created the rerum natura, a flux of symbolic values, valencias. How would you translate valencias? Values. A flux of symbolic values between the Epicurus cosmology and the conceptual field of Roman politics and religion. And he could articulate need and pure contingency, natural reason and freedom, natural reason and liberty in action. Lucretius criticized strongly the model of the pious model prescribed by traditional Roman religion. He worried, especially with character, in his point of view, restrictive and punitive of the fides, that forced Roman citizens to a strict observance of rituals. The Epicurus poet considered this civic pact with the gods did not conduct to a controlled and reflected process of engagement with divine sphere. There was a risk of citizens exaggerating the limits of religious zeal and give themselves to a rational fear of the wrath and prescriptions of gods viewed as irascible. Religious terror in these conditions were incompatible with reasonable spirit and a clear philosophical vision. And different from Cicero, Lucretius considered that religious fear and the expectancy of divine punishment, instead of cooperating for the stability of social order, avoided or made obstacles for the Romans and made Romans declare wars and practice all sorts of wrongdoings against their own good and putting their lives permanently in risk. In the Rerum Natura, the Roman poet exhorted his public, the Roman elite of his time, to submit fides to ratio. With this, he proposed that religious fear would be fought in the field of scientific speculation. Epicurus philosophy would offer the enlightenment of the mechanic of the functioning of nature that was necessary to subtract from men the terror of divine judgment. So, as they do not interfere with the mechanic of functioning of nature, gods do not interfere in human affairs. So, that is, Lucretius understands that the action of divine beings in a very different way from those exposed by Cicero in the Legibus. It is possible to identify along the Rerum Natura a series of criticisms addressed to the traditional forms of prayer, of oaths, and other Roman religious formulas that would ask for help or mediation from the gods. It's very significant that Lucretius had formulated the first philosophical prayer in Latin language addressed to Venus that would reveal his disposition to resignificate discursive practice connected to religio publica, to Roman religio publica. Lucretius tried to convince the members of the Roman elite that the only compatible conduct with true pietas demanded by their social position in the exercise of his magistrative and priestly obligations is that one fundamental in the Epicurist ratio. To them, the poet recommended a reformulation of the civic pact with the Roman gods. It is possible that Lucretius hoped that political and religious authorities from Rome, stimulated for the verses written, according to Cicero himself, with ars and ingenium, and dedicated to study of Epicurist physics and committed to its precepts and ethic formulas. The poet really made an effort in his composition. We must remember the honey spread in the cups that contained the bitter absinthe of a difficult and obscure doctrine. The scientific investigation of nature should take the magistrates and priests from Rome to choose an orientation for the practical life that would alter their manners of thinking and feeling, and would allow the correction of judgments and thinking mistakes, erros de raciocínio. With this, we could take to the exercise of their political religious functions a reflection on the nature, on the superior nature of divinities. Lucretius spends a huge argumentative vis against the current vision of divine action. In place of remembering, repeating, and agreeing, he incita nas passagens, he would put controversy and discussion. As Cicero, especially in the Divinatone, the Roman poet got actively involved in the philosophical discussion around the very worrying increase in the use of auspices as instruments of political control, aware of the laws, sometimes complex, and ruling the exercise of auspices. Lucretius instructed the magistral and priestly authorities in the Epicurist ratio, for he was convinced that that would be enough to guide them in the decision-making processes among this scenario of instability and uncertainty of the civil wars of the first century before current era. Even Cicero recognized that in a time of crisis, it is absolutely necessary to obey the circumstances more than the customs. And the political crisis had precipitated religious terror and the expectation by divine signs of hostility and disapproval. Epicurus' ratio brought the possibility of subtracting Roman elite from this annihilating logic and the irrational terror before the gods, giving them libertas with which they should act in prol of the res publica. Beyond that, the Epicurus ratio could very well be defined using the words of Koselleck as a concept of expectation turned to satisfying needs and new demands. Before this challenge of managing a relatively complex and expanding structure of the Imperium Romanum, religious territory, acting ethnically diversified religious territory, Lucretius articulated a religious political language that opened a window for considerations of political calculation and actions, at least in parts, committed with the autonomy of reason. I think we should stop there.
Sue, thank you so much, not least for this impromptu effort, which can't have been an easy one. Right, without further ado, questions, comments, remarks?
Sim, justamente foi uma forma que eu encontrei, talvez, de iniciando a reflexão sobre essa questão, de sistematizar ou ter de uma forma clara esse percurso que na própria obra do Lucretius é bastante rigoroso. Esse percurso de argumentação ele é bastante claro, bastante sistemático, né? E ele está todo fundamentado na ideia justamente do clinamen, né? Não só nisso, mas fundamentalmente na possibilidade desse desvio, né? Então, a partir desse fundamento vindo, né, da física epicurista, ele transpõe essa possibilidade do desvio, né, da trajetória retilínea, né, dos átomos, do imenso vazio, como uma forma, né, de ao menos justificar ou trazer para a prática política uma ideia de prática política mais afim com questões emergentes e conflitos. E exigem mudanças de postura.
Então você chamou de desvio atômico.
Sim. É uma coisa que é só uma experimentação por enquanto.
Okay. So the question was, Regina had a curiosity about the term deviant rhetoric, where it came from. And the answer from Maria was that it actually was based, it's a term she's experimenting with, and it comes from this deviation of the atoms from their straight movement. I'm not familiar with Epicurus at all. At all. You guys noticed that.
Not especially, actually. Yes?
Alguma pergunta?
I was wondering whether you have any thoughts on the way in which Lucretius constructs religio as a form of, well, to go back to this key word, deviant form of engagement with the gods. He does shy away, doesn't he, from the religio superstitio dichotomy that is so central to much of Cicero's thinking, and on the contrary, he has a very aggressive take on the evils that religio brings about. I was wondering whether you have any thoughts on that.
Então, Sant'Angelo, eu concordo com você no seu livro.
Well, okay.
Então, eu concordo que Lucrécio não utiliza propositalmente o termo supertitio, porque ele sabia que utilizando o termo supertitio, ele estaria de alguma forma corroborando o programa religioso ciceroniano. Então, toda vez que o Lucrécio vai se referir a práticas religiosas nefastas, práticas religiosas não recomendadas, ele vai se referir mesmo à religião, vai usar o termo religio e nunca supertitio. E certamente o Lucrécio conhecia o termo supertitio, né? Só que o que ele considerava supertitio não era certamente o que o Cícero e outros intelectuais mais tradicionais romanos considerariam como supertitio. Então, dentro de uma análise semântica, numa análise conceitual, qualquer uso, apropriação, né, do conceito de supertitio seria uma forma de atribuir, né, valências simbólicas ou transpor valências simbólicas de um conceito para o outro, né, e acabaria, justamente pela utilização do termo, minando, né, a perspectiva lucreciana, né. Então, assim, nesse sentido, o Koselleck ajuda muito nessa questão das operações semânticas, né, como você subtrai ou desforiza, né, a carga positiva de um termo, fazendo referência ao outro, né. Então, é bastante claro que Lucrécio não compartilha, né, dessa visão de supertitio, né, que basicamente foi cunhada, transmitida e reconhecida já no século I pelo trabalho de Cícero, né, e isso claramente é uma posição dele, não utilizar supertitio. E eu comecei a pensar sobre isso justamente lendo o livro do Sant'Angelo, de que não havia como realmente... Porque surpreende que um livro bastante crítico sobre religião não tenha uma palavra sobre superstição. Não tem. Mas isso é compreensível se você localizar o Lucrécio no debate da arena filosófica e pública e política romana, você entende por que ele não usa supertitio.
Your question was?
My question was...
I got lost.
My question was whether Maria has any thoughts on
Okay,
on the
so you
religio
wanted her
superstitio.
comments, this dichotomy of religio and
Yes,
superstition.
and why it's not.
And then she answered that by reading your book,
Yes.
right? She started thinking about this dichotomy, and she realized that Lucretius does not use the term superstitio at all, because he does not wish to reinforce the, what would we call it, prestige of Cicero's views on the subject. So he avoids the use of the term altogether. So even when he talks about negative aspects of religion, he does not use the word superstitio, he uses the word religio. That's basically.
Yep. Greg.
Thank you very much for the paper. It's a huge, ambitious topic, and it's very interesting. Could I ask about the context of crisis? Because I can see that the Cicero works, which we can locate quite clearly in his own political evolution, how his own experience interacts with the way in which he writes De Legibus and then later De Natura Deorum and so on. For his purposes, I can see why philosophy offers a way to understand how things that have been all right and are not all right. But if you're an Epicurean, do you see crisis the same way? Because if Epicureanism teaches you not to fear anything, because things are constantly coming together and coming apart. And do Epicureans worry about political crisis? And Lucretius' own experience, of course, is different. He's not engagé in that way.
You mean how Epicureans see the crisis, political crisis? How Epicureans...
Even whether they see it, whether an Epicurean would be that worried about the state religion or about this, because doesn't it give you a certain sense of detachment from the world if you're a good Epicurean?
No. Detachment of the world, the Epicureans.
If you cultivate ataraxia or whatever, if you're sort of moving away from... I wonder whether you worry about the collapse of the Roman Republic, because everything's going to collapse.
Bom, can I answer in Portuguese and then...
Please,
okay.
Yes.
Eu sou terminantemente contra, assim, pelo menos o que eu tenho lido até então, e tenho tentado focar nisso, que a recepção da filosofia epicurista em Roma, em nenhum modo essa recepção torna possível ou ressoa como um imperativo de afastamento da vida pública, pelo contrário. Né? Quando o epicurismo chega aos ouvidos, né? Chega enfim, aos banquetes e às vilas itálicas, enfim, o que eu percebo é uma orientação, né, para a vida pública. Né? Assim como, da mesma forma como outras escolas filosóficas helenísticas chegam em Roma e imediatamente, né, no século I, a gente já tem mais essa visão do filósofo, aquele que se dedica aos estudos. Essa posição de um homem versado, né, nos estudos da filosofia. Esse homem, ele já no século III ou II, mas seguramente no século I, ele já é visto com muitos bons olhos, né? E César é um imenso epicurista, um grande epicurista, e é bastante... Aliás, é o que eu pretendo fazer no pós-doc, que é justamente tentar perceber como o círculo próximo de César, mas também o próprio César, agiu informado por uma orientação decididamente epicurista nas suas tomadas de decisão, né, na arena pública, seja César nas reformas do período da sua ditadura, reformas religiosas no período da sua ditadura. Eu suponho, né, e eu gostaria de aprofundar a possibilidade, sim, da teoria, né, da ética epicurista, sendo ativamente empregada como ferramenta de instrumentação política mesmo, por aquelas elites. Em nenhum modo, em nenhum momento, a doutrina epicurista ali, em Roma, vai incitar aqueles homens, vai incentivá-los a sair da vida pública, pelo contrário. Né, vai realmente incitá-los ao debate, à reflexão, mas também à contestação. E realmente eu escrevi, na verdade, eu escrevi um artigo só para isso. Eu lembro que foi um artigo em que eu tentava desconstruir a ideia de que a filosofia epicurista não era dissociada dessa busca dos romanos pelas magistraturas, pelo prestígio, pela carreira das honras, né, porque isso tudo é construído, né, todo esse percurso, toda essa argumentação, né, uma coisa construída. E então eu lembro eu escrevi um artigo justamente para tratar do epicurismo e do epicurismo romano, porque o epicurismo romano tem características muito particulares que não se encontram é diferente, né, do ambiente grego, né, helenístico, e eu percebo isso, que não é incompatível com a carreira das honras. O epicurismo, tal como ele chega em Roma, não é incompatível com a carreira das honras e com a ascensão política, enfim, com a participação na arena pública. Pelo contrário, assim, dá instrumentação para esses magistrados, esses sacerdotes, estarem na disputa pelo poder.
Do you think Lucretius thought that Roman Epicureanism was different from Epicurus? Did he think he was changing it?
How? What?
Because if Roman Epicureanism is very particular, did Lucretius consciously depart from the master? Or did he not realise he was changing? Maybe it's not clear.
Eu acho que ela entendeu, sim. Ele está perguntando o seguinte: se o epicurismo romano é diferente do grego, se você acha que Lucrécio tinha consciência que ele estava modificando e se apartando, se distanciando